Another day, another confrontational congressional hearing. Things took a turn during a House Oversight Committee hearing on right-sizing government.
It all started with Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace's comments criticizing USAID. Here she is.
The USAID awarded $2 million to strengthen trans-led organizations to deliver gender-affirming health care in Guatemala. So to each of you this morning, does this advance the interests of American citizens paying for in Guatemala to the tune of $2 million? Yes or no? Governor?
Ranking member of the Oversight Committee, Jerry Connolly, not surprisingly took issue with what Mace had to say.
And that's when things got a little bit heated. Check it out.
Mr. Chairman, parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, sir.
The gentlelady has used a phrase that is considered a slur in the LGBTQ community and the transgender community. And let me please finish without interruption. And
I don't really care. You want penises in women's bathrooms, and I'm not going to have it.
Okay.
No, thank you.
It's
disgusting.
let the gentleman state his parliamentary inquiry.
And I would just ask the chairman that she be counseled that we ought not to be engaged. We can have debate and policy discussion without offending human beings who are our fellow citizens.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to be counseled by a man over men and women's spaces or men who have mental health issues dressing as women. I'm not being counseled by some guy.
My inquiry is to the chairman,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Order. The inquiry is about decorum. Decorum is at the discretion of the chair.
That's
I will be
mansplaining,
honest,
Mr. Chairman.
with the ranking member. I'm not up to date on my politically correct LGBTQ terminology. We'll look into that.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump signed an executive order banning transgender athletes from women's sports.
Here's the president yesterday.
With this executive order, the war on women's sports is over. Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
The NCAA released a statement writing, quote, "The NCAA Board of Governors is reviewing the executive order and will take necessary steps to align NCAA policy in the coming days, subject to further guidance from the administration."
According to NCAA President Charlie Baker, of the 510,000 college athletes, less than 10 publicly say they're transgender. Reacting to the Mace incident, journalist Kara Swisher wrote on Blue Sky, "Nancy Mace needs help and then needs to be shown the exit."
CNN journalist Andy Kaczynski tweeted, "CNN's pollster Harry Enton found that 79% of Americans oppose transgender athletes in female sports yesterday, including 67% of Democrats." To which international security professor Max Abrams responded, "The push for transgender athletes competing in female sports is basically an elite liberal phenomenon, out of step with Americans, including Democrats." So two things here. The first is the Trump executive order. You know, I don't even know that I care for the federal government to weigh in on this at all, but, you know, having men and keeping sex-segregated sports is, in fact, like an 80-20 issue, and there's no doubt this is very popular, and I actually don't even hear very many Democrats defending it on the merits. They'll say, well, this is an important issue, or this is not an important issue. This affects a very small number of people. That it affects a very small number of people always cuts both ways to me, because, well, it's not like there's this massive number of athletes being disenfranchised by this, and still, even if there were only 10, if because of the advantage given to the accrues to biological males, like if they win every event, even if there's a small number of them, like that still matters to everyone else. So I don't really get that argument. Now that's separate from Nancy Mace's antics. We bleeped the word. I don't know that it's a word you have to bleep. I guess I won't say it because we bleeped it. I don't know that it's a
very common
word.
Well, it's a very commonly known slur or term or derogatory term. Transgender people.
Yeah, I've never understood that. Like, it's so bad you have to bleep it or can't say it. But it was mean-spirited the way she said it, and I don't know what good that does anyone, and I would like a little bit more. Like, this isn't, a wrestling show. It's not reality TV. If she could just rein it in a little bit, would be nice.
Absolutely. I mean, I thought that her thing was kind of schoolyard behavior and kind of bullying sort of behavior as well. I mean, trying to poke fun at people by using a slur and using it in this rather juvenile way of just like repeating the word, like some kid who's been told to not say a word by her parents and keeps saying it again and again. I also think in her case it's particularly dubious because at one time in her career she was actually, by Republican standards at least, fairly socially progressive, including on LGBTQ issues, and she said back in 2021 that she supported equality for everybody and was actually the co-sponsor of a bill that would have provided a special office within the Department of Veterans Affairs for LGBTQ people. So therefore I think there's also the suspicion that it's very performative. A while back she famously was photographed she had the bill to ban transgender women from women's bathrooms in the Capitol, and then she posted a photograph of herself from her social media accounts she'd written biological on a piece of paper or a piece of card and held it above the woman sign for the bathrooms. And it's like, okay, what are we doing here? I mean, it's very reality TV show-ish.
Yes, and I actually would say she has not endeared herself to all conservatives. There are a lot of social conservatives who don't trust her whatsoever for the reasons you're pointing out. She tweeted a photo of her in she had military service or something of that nature, in her military uniform, saying like, this is why I fight to keep, men and women, or fight against the transgender movement or something. And like a lot of Matt Walsh, Daily Wire type social conservatives were like, no, you're just as bad. We don't think women should be in the armed forces. So you're a faux conservative anyway.
Wow. Okay.
So she is actually not liked by social conservatives.
I mean, I get that they consider her kind of basically fraudulent. I obviously wouldn't go towards the banning women from the armed services or whatever that view is. I find that view absurd, but I get that people, and I share skepticism about her bona fides. In relation to the Trump thing, I mean, it is, I think, much more defensible to have some sort of bar on people competing in adolescent or adult sports in ways that are aligning with their gender identity rather than their sex at birth. You and I have discussed this a number of times before. I mean, there are just physical differences, particularly that manifest from adolescence onwards. People who were born male have advantages in terms of strength and speed, typically in general terms, over people who were born female. And I think the problem for people who argue for trans participation in competitive sports is that it seems to so much of the population that they're arguing for something unfair, shrouded in the kind of language of social progress, because lots of people don't think either, if they're their daughters or sisters or women themselves should be competing against people who appear to have that kind of advantage.
Up next, finally, the unedited Harris interview from 60 Minutes has been released. We'll discuss.